Good morning, everyone. It's 9 o'clock in the morning here, so we're a little bit earlier than normal, but in about 4 hours when I normally do this one, we will be busy with Penn coming in, so there's no way that's going to happen. And this afternoon, there'll be a lot going on as well. Too many things happening at once, but it's all good. And when I look out the window here, it's absolutely roaring through. In fact, we were getting like 35 knots here last night. Probably gusting higher, 40. It's been really quite crazy and quite a big sea. The sea is coming straight into the bay. I'm looking on the beach here. There's 4 meter surf coming through. So let's wait and see what happens when we get down to the marina. Once I finish this, I head down to the office. We'll have a look at conditions. We've got 4 ribs and a media boat going out, but they may not go anywhere yet. We'll have to wait and see exactly what we can do. But either way, the finish line's right off the end of the breakwater and everything's highly visible. So if we can't get out in the boats, we'll film it all from the breakwater. We look down the line from there. They take their own times as well. And then once they drop their sails, they can continue past the finish line, drop their sails, get organised. They motor in towards in behind the breakwall there, and then the boats will meet up with them and help them get onto their med-style mooring. So it's not on a marina berth. They're coming up against a wall, so they'll be reversing in with a bow mooring buoy set up. Ribs there to assist them. It's like little tugboats, you might say. Bring them back to the wall and get them settled, and they'll be happy to be here, I'm sure. So you probably saw some of the comments there. We knew that Tapio was going to get clobbered. Not last night, the night before. I mentioned, if you followed the tracker, the weather intensified unexpectedly over the top of Galiana, and their reports this morning were obviously indicating some seriously heavy following seas. In that part of the world, they can get quite, they're like giant wind waves rather than big Southern Ocean swells, which makes them even more demanding. And that's exactly what happened to Translated. They had the big broaches and then a knockdown. It's the first really reported knockdown per se, like water-generated, wave-generated knockdown, the whole fleet, which is something that I'm, very surprised about. But nonetheless, that's how it worked. So Tapio had some fun during the night, but it's all dropped off now. And Explorer, of course, just reported broken steering. We got up early this morning, following through, and noticed their speed down, and was wondering what was going on. Anyway, they finally explained that they have lost their steering, and there's a few options after that. I'm assuming that the lost steering is broken wires, like steering wires that go around the quadrant from the pedestal onto the rudder shaft. And if it's the broken wires, the first thing they do is set the emergency tiller, and so they can manage the boat with the emergency tiller. But it's still not much fun. It's not as good as on the steering wheel. So then in those conditions, there's no point in persevering, so it's best to hove to if they can, and wait for conditions to moderate, and then look at what the options are. In an extreme emergency, they've also got an electric autopilot, which is independent of the steering wires, so they could actually steer the boat using the hydraulic rams of the electric autopilot to steer quite comfortably. They wouldn't have done that yet because there would be penalties involved for using the autopilot, but when safety is concerned, it's not a problem. They could also do that. We have a hydrovane wind vane on the back of the boat, which is an auxiliary steering system as well, but the rudder is stowed on board. And to fit the rudder, it's a pretty simple process. You just slide the rudder up on the shaft and put a pin in. It's that simple. In ideal conditions on the marina, you'd do it in a couple of minutes. But the process at sea is you've got to get the swimmer tied on with the rope. The swimmer dives over the side. The rudder's lowered over. The rudder floats. So they've then got to wait until the motion of the boat's right, and the shaft has got to penetrate about 6 inches and juggle it around and then slip it up. And once it's there, drop the pin in. And at sea, that's quite challenging, especially when there's a big sea running. So that's another option with that auxiliary rudder in. You can use a little tiller. You cannot load the boat up because the rudder is quite small, but it will steer the boat. And if you needed to, you could put the wind vane head on and actually self-steer the boat. But again, on a 57-footer, 22 ton, it's at the limit. So you can't absolutely race the boat. You have to undersail it a little bit and let the wind vane steer. So they have some options. Anyway, we'll look at the weather and I'll explain what's going on there. The rest of the fleet's all trundling along. The ETA for Penjuic is sometime, I reckon, around about 1 o'clock this afternoon local time. So that'll be 3 hours later. So that's 4 o'clock, 1600 UTC for the people in France. And let's wait and see what happens. They could come a little bit earlier, depends on their speed and everything right now when we update this one. They're still on 4 hourly, but very shortly they should go on to 1 hourly as we're coming in on final approach. So we'll follow them in as well. That's probably enough of that. Let's go over here to the tracker and we'll see what's going on. First one, I want to see what speed Penjuic is doing, just to see the ETA. 9.9, okay, 30 miles left to go, so they could be here in 3 hours. So that's about 12 o'clock. The wind is going to die off a little bit, but I think they'll maintain that, and we'll double check that they're coming in on hourly positions. So that's cool. You can see the mid-fleet here getting a bit of a mixed bag, but still making good progress. And Galiana's out of the breeze there. Sterner got around Cape Horn and just missed the heavy weather, which is great. And Explorer's only doing a couple of knots. 1.8 knots. They're hove to. So let's just have a look here. So yes, Sterner was very lucky. They just arrived in the lee of the landmass here and managed to get moderate weather all the way around Cape Horn. I'll do a rounding time and distance off later on. But yeah, happy sailors there, that's for sure. And for Explorer, yeah, currently drifting along 1.8 knots. They're hove to, and I'd imagine they're hove to with the emergency tiller on the rudder shaft to set that up. Now, conditions there, you may have read the post down below. They had plenty of breeze and big seas going into this stuff. Over 55 knots and 7-8 meter seas. It's backing back slowly now. You can see it's moderating. This is the real-time weather. And if we walk that through, it's pretty clear they've got a little bit of a puff there later on this afternoon, but then it's dropping off really quickly. So you can see that's dropping back to 25 knots, gusting 35, and then it's even getting better and better. So that's the 14th. The rest of tomorrow is all very easy conditions. It should be about 15 to 20 knots, gusting up to 30. The sea will drop back to 4 meters, maybe a little bit less, but it'll be quite benign. And then even if we go back here, I'll just open it up just to show you the 15th again, no big storms coming through. So that's kind of cool. It gives them a few days leeway to get around Cape Horn. They're about 250 miles, 240 miles off. It's not jigging there at the moment. The internet's going slow. Here we go. So the 15th is clear as well. It's beautiful conditions to get moving, and in fact it's going to go light. So at some point, there's the 16th. At some point through that light, I'd expect to see in the next 24 hours or so, they will have swapped the steering cables. It's quite a job to get in there. They've got to empty everything out of the lazarette, the aft locker, and then pull all the floorboards out there to get to it. Someone's got to get down there, and all the time they're working on the quadrant, the rudder will be moving. Even if the rudder is fixed, it still wobbles around a little bit. So you've then got to undo nuts and bolts and cable clamps and so on, run the new wires, then fit the new wires, tension them, all sorts of little bits and pieces. So you may remember when this happened to Sterner previously, it took them a couple of days before they were finally underway again. And I can't imagine them doing much for the next 24 hours maybe until the weather goes over and conditions get better. So it could be, it's the 13th, 14th, 15th, you might not see them around Cape Horn for another 2 days or so. We'll just see how that pans out. But the good news is they're not sitting ducks for a storm, okay? There's right through to the 16th, even the 17th is pretty okay. 18th, there you go, then this thing's happening. So anyway, we don't have to be too concerned about them just waiting for the next storm to come through. We'll just wait for this one to go through. And all's happy on board, so no real concern. So Sterner doing 7.4 knots right now and did 250 mile a day. happy with that. Now they're going to get a little bit on the nose. The rest of the fleet here, Evrika, 6.3 knots, 161 mile a day. They're hard on port tack with the wind forward of the beam, very much forward of the beam, probably close to windward work. 7.6 for Outlaw, 172 mile a day. White Shadow, 8.5 knots, 190 mile a day. L'Esprit de Keep, 8.4 knots, 187 mile a day. Galiana, 8.2 knots and 205 mile a day. And Triana, 8.4 knots, 193 mile a day. So the fleet is moving pretty much as one. There's not a lot of changing in positions. They're, just coping with what's going on. So Neptune, 9.5, 239 mile a day. They got to move on there. In fact, all of these ones we've got made from this 9.5, 239 mile a day. Spirit of Helsinki, 9.7, 243. So again, they're all moving pretty much as one. And they're all, even the separation looks pretty consistent. It's quite funny. It's like a train. So about 80 miles apart, say, for most of them. Generally speaking, about 80. So that'll be about 10 hours average, 10 hours apart. So it's going to be fun when they're arriving in Punta del Este here at the yacht club, because we won't be getting much sleep. There'll be every 10 hours another boat. That'll be fun. Okay, so you can see Maiden and Spirit of Helsinki side by side. They'll be just about looking at each other, I think. Let's just see, just for fun, exactly what their separation is. Okay, well, yeah, 8 miles. 8 miles, you can probably see, if the sun's right, you can probably see their sails on the horizon, certainly in VHF contract. So tomorrow will be fun. It's Valentine's Day tomorrow. I'm sure there'll be some strange radio communications going on between all the various crews. So, okay, now let's just have a good look at translated still in Falklands, of course. Marie is doing 9.9 and had a 219 mile day, and distance to the finish is 30 miles. So 30 miles at 10 knots is 3 hours. So yeah, it's sometime shortly after midday today. So we'll be down there getting organised very shortly. So, and the wind here is dropping off, but it's not substantial. It's going to drop down from about 30-something knots down to about 22, something like that. And then later in the afternoon, it'll be back down to 15 knots and things like that. But the sea will remain, and it could be quite challenging. So we'll have to wait and see what we can do there. It's quite cold too, actually. The breeze is coming up from way down south, and it's the coldest I've seen it here for now. So what we'll do is we'll look at what's happening to the weather for the majority of the fleet. I'll forget Penjuic there for the moment. Push this down, and we should be able to get go down one more. It's a little screen. So that come down here, down there. Okay. So let's progress the weather forward. We're looking at the main fleet here, and we'll see what they're going to get. So that trough between the two systems is moving across. So they've got a pretty solid northerly flow there. Try picking it up one more so you can see a bit better. That's a bit better. Okay. Yeah, so pretty much headwinds. That'll slow down the majority of the fleet now, and Galiana will get a little bit of respite, but then they're going to still get the headwinds. Stern is going to sail into no wind. It's going to be slow going for them, and the others have got the challenge of the headwinds. Maiden and Neptune and so on, they're sailing into the hole. This gives Penjuic a big break here, because generally this part of the rest of the fleet is going to slow down more than what Penjuic had to do, and Penjuic will be sitting there in port with watching the clock go, which increases her gap on IRC, so she may climb the leaderboard. I'm not sure how to look against Galiana and so on. It's going to be very interesting, because then again here right through we're into the 15th now, 2 days, still headwinds, so the fleet will be struggling a bit with these headwinds and going slow compared to Penjuic rocketing up north, and it's only, well, there goes the 15th. And after that, it's still the same because you've got the centre of this high not moving away too much. This is the formation of a South Atlantic high, and it's the wrong side of it, so they're having to climb north very slowly. So we might not see them for a couple of days. Then it's very light again. Look at this, headwinds coming all the way down here. So this three full days. It's not looking good. So that's good for Penjuic. So, okay, we can see that. Let's have a look at the leaderboard, and that'll give us an indication of what's happening. The rankings for Lion Honours, you pretty much saw how they're stacked up on the graphic there. We went through, and IRC, this is the interesting one. So Triana, 13 hours, and Galliana with Secure, 19 hours. So one day and a bit behind. Hard to catch that one up. Neptune, 37 days, 2 hours. That will probably all float. They could try and catch up past Galliana with Secure, so that's a bit open. Just depends, but I think generally the whole fleet's going to have similar weather. Penjuic, and this is the interesting one. Excuse me, 37 days, 5 hours. Okay, and Triana is 35 days, 13 hours. So 5, 6, 7. There's only 2.5, 5, 6, 1 full day, and less than a day. So yeah, that's going to be interesting because the whole fleet could drop back at least a day. So you may see Penjuic drop up to third or even maybe second. Just depends, because they're not going to go fast this last gap. And just let's see how much they've got to go. Like Galliana, for instance, distance to the finish is 600. Yeah, it's 3.5 days. 3.5 to 4 days. It's going to be 4 days. Now, Penjuic could easily take out a day on that, and Triana she's got 3.5 days to go to the finish. Yeah, there could be some more shuffling on this because Penjuic's done very well to get in the way they have, been given a bit of a weather window to a degree, but it's going to, the back end of the fleet's going to bog down a bit. So let's see how that pans out over the next few days. It's all going to be very interesting. We'll be watching with great interest the progress with Explorer and their steering gear. Nothing like a challenge. It's all about the stories, and it's all human work that's going to try and fix the problem. There's a mouthful there. Okay. Anyway, we wish them well. We're on standby, but Mark's pretty cool. The crew are competent, and I'm not overly concerned at all. They'll get on top of this. It's just a pain in the butt, but it happens. So that's that. I'll come back here now. I haven't been using my mouse, so you've been listening to the clicks. Come back here and say good day and see what's going on with comments. So good day, Larry. I've got the wrong year on the title. Oops. Okay. Hi, everybody. Listening from La Rochelle. G'day up there. Oh, my mouse is going funny. Judy, morning. Amazing. Hope Explorer can fix the steering. 6 to 7 waves and upcoming storm is a real challenge. Yeah, they're over the worst of the storm, so it's all backing off, but it's not going to realistically, it's not going to back off until another 12 hours or so. So I would imagine they'll just be playing some music, cooking some more food, just taking it easy until, not using the mouse today. I forgot about that. I've got it now. Lots of clunking. It's amazing. This computer's really funny. Best wishes to Explorer. Thanks, Sue. Okay, that's about it. I'm off down to the office and see what's going on. We will see you tomorrow. The special day, Valentine's Day, and 100th celebration for